Welcome back. I'm Sam, and here we are with my friend Syed Akbar. We are going to be continuing on part 2 of this discussion on Malay problems versus Malaysian problems. Right? We stopped at when we talked about this topic at a point where we were talking about minority community that did not have opportunity because of the affirmative action, so to speak, that has been taken on a race basis to favor the Malay community, especially, which we expanded it to so-called Bumi Putra community. I think that will take us into the learning environment, the critical thinking that is faced by our societies. But let's start off talking about this imbalance as a result of this affirmative action. Should we continue with these affirmative actions? Or I have my point of view on this. But Syed, let's kick it off with you.
Yeah, we have discussed this in previous podcasts. My view is that yes, we do need the affirmative action. I think we will need it for a long time, but the affirmative action has to be structured properly. When we send our kids to school, they go to kindergarten, then they go to primary school. We call it primary school because it is primary education. That education is the most primary education that any human being needs.
Well, foundational, especially.
Foundational, learning to read and write. Then, only then you go to secondary education. Yeah. And then you go on to university. But at every step along in this process, there is a graduation. You learn to read and write, you learn to count, you learn to multiply. That's primary school. Then you go on to secondary education. You learn things like arts, sciences, higher mathematics, things like that. And then you graduate from there. You go into university, where if you qualify, where you learn skill sets. Like you become an engineer, you become a doctor, whatever. Those are specific skill sets. So at every step of the process, there is a graduation, there is an improvement. In affirmative action in this country, the graduation process is a little bit stunted. We seem to put people on permanent IV drips from birth to death. It's like affirmative action all the way, with no proper graduation built into the affirmative action system. A simple example, the Bumi Putras get 7% discount to buy houses. Even if you're buying a multi-million ringgit bungalow house, you get a 7% discount. I don't think that is necessary. You want to help the Bumi Putras, the medium income, the lower income groups who are finding it difficult to save up to buy a house. So if you give them a 7% discount, a Bumi Putra discount, that it makes more sense, you see. But when a guy can already afford to pay for a high-end condominium in Bangsa or Damansara, or buying a bungalow house, and he still gets a 7% discount, I think that is defeating the purpose. Because a person who can buy a high-end condominium in Bangsa or Damansara or a bungalow house, he's no more in need of affirmative action. He's already made it. So this is where this cradle to grave kind of holding your hands and giving you freebies does not help achieve that other most desirable commodity in this entire story of affirmative action, to make people competitive and to be able to stand on their own feet. That's the purpose of affirmative action, so that the community that is supposedly the beneficiary of affirmative action can compete and stand on their own feet with anybody else. But if you keep feeding them freebies and subsidies from cradle to grave, you are not going to achieve that. You're making them permanently addicted to affirmative action, which is what the politicians want, I think, because they want the votes.
Yeah. Well, I look at affirmative action. I don't know in terms of the needs. I think I just hate the word affirmative action. I'm sorry. This is my point of view. Because I think that if it's the government's job to actually ensure that all the citizens are taken care of in terms of their foundational requirements, right? So that means that you don't differentiate on skin color, you don't differentiate on race, you don't differentiate on religion. If you have less group, less a disadvantaged group of people. That's the best way to put it, right? And you provide the best for all your citizens, okay? And if you make a bit of focus, especially during the earlier part, okay, I'll give that affirmative action point of view, which is you bring them out of poverty, put them in an area where they are able to think, they have time to actually, and an environment that allow them to learn, a proper boarding school, for example, okay, with all the facilities for their reading and science and mathematics and all that for everyone. And especially if you have limited, you give it to disadvantaged groups, as you say. Fine, right? Then you even the playing field, so to speak. But I think we've been going on too far, as you said. The drip has been going on for 60 years?
The IV.
Yeah, the IV is 60 years. The patient is dying already. Okay? So that means that
it's because we don't make them competitive.
Yeah, we don't. And if you ask me, I said, to me, I'm only concerned until they get to about 17. Okay? Because the minute they finish the secondary school, they got to decide, or even before that, whether they are more apt for vocational work, more apt to go into just going out and being entrepreneurial, start as a salesman, rather than going to a university or even a college, a 2-year college. I don't see a necessity for everybody to go to tertiary education, right? I don't see, actually, if you ask me, here's another part that's going to be controversial. I don't see a necessity to have Islamic universities. It does not provide for productive economic activity. So why are we spending money on unproductive activities? Because we need to, as you said in the part 1, per capita, our children, we need to allocate resources. And our resources are finite. Right? So we must make sure that they're going to be productive citizens by the time they reach 17.
We discussed in part 1 about religious education, hours spent per week in religious education in schools. As I mentioned, when I was in school, I think at the same time as you, we had 1 hour of religious class a week.
Correct.
And that was it.
That was it, yeah.
And religion was not something you would see every day around the school campus or in government departments. Religion was kept at home and in your family, and when you go to the mosque and basically inside you. But now religious education in schools, primary and secondary, takes up many hours. I think as you mentioned earlier, it's almost the same or more than the hours spent for science and maths together, Science and maths together. Yeah. Religious education is more than that. That means you separate the science and the mathematics, is even more. You're spending more time on religion than, say, on mathematics. I recently saw a news article where we rank very lowly in terms compared to other countries in the number of hours spent on science and maths education per year in our school system. Even Myanmar teaches more hours on an annual basis in science and maths than Malaysia. And other countries are way ahead of us, even Indonesia, because we spend a lot of hours on religious education in our primary school, secondary school, and now even university. Now, the first thing is I want to ask is, what is so difficult about our religion that we have to spend hours teaching the kids in primary school, in secondary school, and even up to university? I know for a fact that medical students in our government universities, they also study religion in medical school. So, is a religion that complicated and difficult that you must teach it to these kids
I have an answer for you though. Say,
Go ahead.
yeah, it's because we have overproduced the so-called graduates of religion,
And they need a job.
and they need their jobs.
Okay.
And the government require them to be employed and to keep voting for them.
So remember, we are still discussing Malay problems versus
That's a Malay problem.
Malaysian problems.
Yeah.
So when talking about religion, Islamic education, you are basically talking about Malays. So is it a problem? Is it not a problem? What is it? Okay, we have to compare. The world is so much smaller now. We are in instant communications with the whole world. You can play chess with somebody in Germany online. My kids used to do it 20 years ago, 25 years ago. The world is just so much smaller. We are competing with so many people, our neighboring countries, let's not use the word countries, societies, societies of human beings. We are competing with different societies, How do they spend their time? So let's say if we are teaching 7 hours of religious education per week in our classrooms, primary and secondary, and let's say the Vietnamese kids at the same time, they are spending that 7 hours in STEM, science, education, subjects that will directly impact on their capacity to be productive. Let's not talk about what they're going to earn or not earn. Directly impact their capacity to be productive, producing scientific and technology-based output, whatever it is. They could be computer programmers, they could be furniture manufacturers, they could be vegetable farmers, whatever. Based on science and technology, they're getting extra 7 hours of exposure per week.
That the other kid,
which our kids are studying religion.
Yeah.
So multiply that by the semesters in the year, by the years, by 6 years or 5 years of 6 years of primary education, followed by another 5 years, 6 years of secondary education, followed by maybe 4 years of university. Multiply that, 7 hours every week. That's the distance that they will be ahead.
Yep.
Compared to our kids who are studying religion. Now, the counter argument reply could be that, well, our kids are ahead in religion by 7 hours a week. You can say that, and you can say that is what I want because to me that is important. Fine. Now these are arguments. We can debate that. But does it bring that economic return? Does it help you in your productivity, your tangible productivity, in providing your output, providing goods and services that will help you, that will help feed you and help feed your family, vis-a-vis the next fella in say Vietnam or Thailand or now
because
even
you're competing
Indonesia.
against all these people.
You're competing.
Yeah.
So they are 7 hours ahead or have more exposure per week, because they're learning STEM subjects, other things, which will add to their productivity, their output, their real productivity. So you can say that, I have a better chance of going to heaven. You can say that, but that is an event in the future. I'm talking about, here,
I'm not even sure whether that's an event in the future, but go ahead.
It depends on how you behave. I don't want to debate that. But, the here and the now, you're going to fall behind. Remember, let's keep reminding ourselves we are discussing Malay problems versus Malaysian problems. Malaysian problems means people of other religions and races. It's the same thing.
Well,
so it accumulates. It's got a cumulative effect, like a snowball rolling down the hill. It gets bigger as it rolls down. And then when it finally reaches the bottom, it's too big and heavy, and then it has to crash and it gets destroyed because you cannot control your movements anymore. You've accumulated so much of baggage, and you really cannot control your future anymore. You drown in it. So the other societies in other countries, the other societies within our country, they do not face the same issues. So after so many years, you realize that how come there are still these differences are there, the variances, racial imbalances that's still there. Why are they not going away? Why are they not going away? Because you're not looking at the other communities and finding out what makes them tick.
Well, you have actually structurally constructed a jail within your individuality, your children's individual capacity, because they have been restricted from learning because you've taken away 7 hours of their day compared to the other community
per week,
all right, sorry, per se, like that. So they're way behind already.
Yeah,
So how are you going to compete?
There are only 24 hours in a day.
Correct.
It's how you spend your 24 hours in a day.
Exactly. If you want to be the best footballer, you better spend
The extra 7 hours.
yes, to become a good footballer.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, I look at it especially right now in the 21st century. We are in the mid of the 21st century, right? Already.
Yeah,
and we've got this
quarter
AI
century has gone by.
Yeah, AI boom is going on at the moment. We don't know how society is going to be restructured. Okay, if you were to ask me, what I need from all this, from the education, is to provide our children with critical thinking capacity. And that critical, and why people like ourselves been banging on STEM. It's not so much I want you to be an engineer. STEM makes you think.
Exactly.
It teaches you to have a critical thinking and argue and be logical in terms of how you approach a problem.
Yeah, you are not afraid to think.
Yes.
You're not afraid of the thinking process.
You're not afraid to ask questions.
People who are forced to conform, to follow the mold.
Yep.
They become afraid of the thinking process itself. They are afraid to think something new. Just the thought process alone frightens them. We don't want to go into that. We don't want to ask. It's not a question of whether we can or cannot or ask those questions. It's rather, should we ask those questions? They are afraid. People are afraid of asking questions. And of course, religion imposes conformity. Without conformity, of course, religion is all about conformity. You have to follow. It's unquestioning faith. You cannot debate issues. You cannot go and debate your religion, Is this true? Is this not? It's a bit too late. Religion is faith. You just have to accept it and believe it. Okay, religion has got, say what you want. Religion has a place in human society for thousands of years. And there's so many religions in this world. But there is a difference when you overdose yourself with something. This is the problem. Anything. If you're an exercise freak and you want to exercise 12 hours in a day, it's going to impact the rest of your life. Your wife will probably pack up and leave, If you're like into this exercise. I know people who do that.
Yeah.
The whole life is about this exercise freaks, how they sit, how they stand, what they wear, what they eat, what they drink. It's all about tied into that, and then it's overwhelming. So it's a question of overdose or not overdose. You have to have some kind of you need a balance. But I think 7 hours, I think the acid test is, if religious education takes up more time than science and mathematics education, there's something wrong there.
I think
that in those days when we had 1 hour of religious education per week, to me, did we go wrong?
Well, here's the other thing about it.
Are we monsters?
Here's the other thing about it is that actually during our time, you could even choose either you want to take art or you want to take religion as a class. Okay, there's even a choice provided for you. Okay, so to me, we should go back to the standard of where basically religion or religious study becomes something that is out of public school and taxpayers' money, but family commitment. That's my point of view.
You do it on your own time.
You do it on your own time.
Money.
You do it on your own money.
We're already encroaching into this area of completely separating religion from state. From the state, which I think is a good thing. We should separate religion from the state in the sense that as you say, you don't use taxpayers' money to fund religion
Especially a single religion.
and religious education.
Yeah.
If parents want to put their children through to a religious school or religious education, they can do it on their own time.
Yeah.
They can send them for tuition, extra classes, whatever. But then again, okay, it is part and parcel of the the landscape in Malaysia for a long time, religious education in school. But I don't see what is wrong with what we did in the 1960s and 70s. We had 1 hour of religious education per week. Now, they teach primary school children how to conduct funeral prayers and the preparing the body for burial. They have courses for that, and they encourage even primary school children to attend these kind of things. Whatever for? I mean, you don't need to teach young kids these kind of rituals and things. There are other people who can do this. I rather that they spend that time teaching those kids something that is useful to their immediate welfare. Our focus of our discussion obviously is their economic welfare, their social well-being in terms of learning, for example, ethics, learning to respect the environment, hygiene, those kind of things, which will help little kids in their life from day one.
Well, you only have the children until between 12 to 14 years in terms of the period of where, the Malay has a saying, which is, if you want to bend the bamboo, you better do it when they are young.
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
So once you get past that stage, they're 15, they're 16, I'm sorry. You can't do much anymore.
So they are spending time learning things or being exposed to things which other communities don't bother. Do not use up their time pursuing.
And this is a big thing.
And the other communities are using up that amount of time to do other things which helps their well-being, their immediate well-being, their economic status and things like that. So, and then after 15 years, 20 years, we go like, hey, how come we've done all this and we are still falling behind?
No, not just that. Then our people or our especially our politicians will say, see, you will never get that opportunity because they will never hire you. Of course, they're not going to hire you because you don't come up to the standard.
They blame the others.
Yeah.
It's not our fault. It's somebody else's fault.
I mean,
So you mentioned critical thinking.
Yeah.
That is the other thing. When you compare the communities in Malaysia, different communities, the level of critical thinking, criticism, asking questions varies. If you look at the Malay Muslim community and other communities, there are significant differences. I know the Indian community, they like to debate and discuss issues, It's in their nature, it's in their language,
Yeah.
A lot of good lawyers in the country come from the Indian community because they can debate, they can argue the point.
Yeah.
This is all because they are exposed to you should be able to think freely and question things and debate things, which we don't have as much in the Malay community. Which we're talking about critical thinking, So because you're not allowed to venture into so many of these alleys and lanes because they are mysterious and dark, they just keep you from going down that road. Don't ask questions. Don't question anything. You have the Sedition Act in this country, If you ask me, the Malays don't need the Sedition Act. They are their own Sedition Act.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, not just Malays.
It's self-imposed.
Muslim people, it's self-imposed. They don't need the Sedition Act. They will self-censor themselves because they have this. They're not used to free, unfettered, open discussion and thinking, which impedes, there's a cost to all this, which impedes your progress vis-a-vis your neighbor who is not impaired by this kind of behavior. So there is a cost. So we end up discussing things like this today, Malay problem versus Malaysian problem, because there is a difference. But we have to overcome these issues. We cannot just say, I don't care. It's not my problem. No, we cannot. We all, as I said, we are one society. We live together.
Yeah.
we don't want to stick our noses into other people's affairs too much, but nevertheless, we should reach out and help our neighbors, if they have issues, maybe share opinions, lend a helping hand, things like that to solve the problem.
This is the problem with the way our politics work, because the non-Malay politicians does not say all these things either, because why? They are supposed to
sensitive.
They'll get criticized by the Malay community.
Oh, worse. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And actually, you ask yourself this. So you've got a Malay community that does not that self-censor, and then you got a Malaysian community that actually does not want to be to broach the subject matter because it's sensitive. So we broach the subject instead of in Parliament. We talk like this. All right. I mean, I tell you why. Even if I were to start today, why I'm not scared about the AI revolution, because during our time, we were well read. Okay, we don't have that self-imposed censorship, and we venture because we are very fluent in English. So we had a lot of access to all sorts of haram knowledge. All right,
haram knowledge.
Yeah. Okay, so
yeah, you could read philosophy. You could read about the communists. You can read whatever you want.
Everything.
Yeah,
right?
Just read anything you
Correct.
want.
So now it's even better for society, because everything is on this little monkey.
You cannot restrict exchange of information and knowledge. It's
Right.
impossible.
So if you nurture this way in schools, right? What will happen is actually, as you get to about 15, 16, you come out, and it doesn't mean that actually, I mean, look, I come out with a chemical engineering. I never did any chemical engineering in my life after that. But the whole education from my STEM and mathematics education allow me to think critically how to maneuver the world, and take charge. I started out, frankly, more of a salesman. That's what I did. I came back in 86. There were no jobs. It was a big recession time. I don't know what year you came back.
86.
86, right? Okay. I got, so I started out doing sales, having doors. So this is, instead of waiting for the government to give you a job, you go and figure it out.
You mentioned AI, yeah?
Yeah.
AI, the whole world is spending so much on AI, money now on AI. Here in Malaysia, recently, the Chinese schools have gone aggressively into AI. They have, the Chinese community, they have teamed up. They have, there are a few Chinese secondary schools. They have teamed up with Chinese educationists and Chinese, basically Chinese universities, private universities. Uttar is one of them, where they have crafted specific AI modules for secondary schools. And then they've got some of this Chinese business people involved to provide some funding and sponsorship and things like that. So they're moving it forward. They've got specific modules in AI, which they have already introduced in their secondary school system. Whereas in the government school system, we are not seeing any AI yet. There was talk about introducing AI and this and that, but I don't know what exactly they're going to do. Bottom line is, so far we have not seen anything, and also their approach. It has yet to be seen what exactly how are they going to introduce AI in secondary schools, because it really has to be taught. It's almost like a separate subject by itself, or you can make it a part of your other teaching of everyday subjects like science, mathematics, and wherever, because AI fits in everywhere, even in history, geography. But you have to focus on it, which I think it is not happening yet. Whereas the Chinese schools are already spending money and going into it quite with some focus. So again, all this will create different speed, the speed,
Yeah.
the forward motion,
Yeah.
the speed of the car will change. One car will start accelerating and going up, beyond 50, 60, 70 kilometers, 100 over kilometers, whereas the other community is still trying to play catch up. So again, this is the issue. It becomes an issue of, when you're talking about government school system, sekolah kebangsaan, again you're talking about Malays, because it's heavily populated by Malay students, heavily populated by Malay teachers, versus other school systems we have in the country, and versus other education systems around the world. We cannot just keep looking at ourselves, and we cannot just look at Malaysia anymore. We cannot just keep looking at other communities around us. We have to pace ourselves against the entire world, because that's how the things are now. Everything is, you are in direct competition with the rest of the world. The world has come into our living rooms every day. AI.
Here's the funny part actually. If you understand the Chinese economy in China, right? Actually, their per capita GDP and median income, per capita, maybe they're about us, or further slightly up or slightly down, depending on the data you look at, right? If you look at median income, all right, they're actually lower than us, if I'm not mistaken, right? But regardless, whatever, let's say they're equal to us or slightly more, it doesn't matter, okay? But the problem is this, right? The thing is, that means that if you were to ask me, if you go like that, that means that their capability should be about the same as ours, or our capability should be the same as theirs. But why is it that when we build data center here, okay, the expertise need to come from China? You see where I'm coming? You see where I'm coming with what you just said about competing with the rest of the world?
The data
that
centers,
means we are late.
They come here for the cheap electricity and the cheap water.
That means we are late.
And less restrictions. In Singapore, they've made data centers very difficult,
Yeah.
They have to use renewable energy. They have to have really strict use water recycling. They use water for the cooling system and all that. And energy, the renewables, it is so much more expensive to set up a data center in Singapore. Your operating costs.
Of course. So
that's why they come here.
Yeah, but in terms of the knowledge base, in terms of the technical capability,
you have to import the people.
You're looking at the same level of economic wealth, or so-called economic wealth per capita, all right? And yet they're far ahead of us. Why? 50% of our population, okay, is way behind. That we are not caught up with what is happening even yesterday.
We are really not paying attention to things that are really happening on the ground.
Yeah.
We are totally cut off. Since you talk about data centers, now there's a bit of hoo-ha going on, or hype in the social media. Malaysia plays a critical role in the computer chip manufacturing. We may not be a design powerhouse. We may not design. Intel does not have a design center here, or they may do some designing here, but definitely we are in the assembly, and more importantly, the testing phase. All these chips that are manufactured are tested before they are sold into the market. And we have a significant position in this part of the chip manufacturing. They say that 13% of all the microchips in the world go through Malaysia. And if there's any breakdown or problem with the chip industry in Malaysia, America will be affected, because a lot of chip manufacturers in Malaysia are Americans. So the entire supply chain will be thrown out of whack, if anything happens to the chip manufacturing in Malaysia. So we play a significant role in computer chip manufacturing. And our largest exports, the largest portion of our exports come from export of computer chips. You're talking about Penang and parts of Malacca, maybe some parts of Selangor. So it contributes a significant amount to our export, largest export. But sad to say, the Malay Muslim community plays a very small role in this computer chip manufacturing, computer chip export, or working in the industry. Very, very small role. As you say, they import the engineers, expatriate engineers. The semiconductor industry in Penang is full of foreign engineers for a long time. Where are our local boys? So again, we are losing out. This is a problem. This is a problem because our local boys, Malay Muslim boys, do not seem to be able to compete on an equal footing in these industries where there cannot be government assistance. This is computer chip manufacturing. It is completely open to the world, to open market forces. You cannot go and ask for subsidies and work. Give me a certain number of jobs for Malays reserve. You cannot do that. No way. So when it comes to the real stuff in the real competition, we fall out. We lose out. And for how long has this been going on, and for how long will this persist? Our leadership, remember in the earlier part one, we spoke about leadership. The leadership doesn't seem to focus on all this. The best they can do is that, okay, we have X number of public universities, government universities in the country. In this X number of universities, we have a certain number of engineering faculties, and every year we hope to graduate so many engineers, and that's it. And that will solve the problems, No, it does not. You can graduate engineers, but you have to teach your engineers to compete among other engineers in the field of engineering. You don't just produce an accountant or a lawyer and say, I've done my job. No, he should be, if you produce an accountant, he should be able to compete as an accountant in the field of accounting with anybody else.
Yeah. So I think.
But if you keep saying that, okay, you've graduated as an accountant, right? Okay, you want to buy a house, I'll give you a discount. You want to start a business, I'll give you a subsidy.
I think at the end of the day,
you've just created someone who is, as you said, addicted to the IV, for their whole life. A person who cannot compete.
Maybe that comes to the point of culture that you have created. Right? Because after about 60 years of this, plus the indigenous culture that we inherit, right?
Are you talking about feudalism?
Yeah, why not? Right. I mean, because culture plays a lot of part in the way we think. And this is where, to a certain extent, I said, leadership is about changing your masses, not the masses. Not for you to actually placate the masses. You are there to lead the masses to a new country, so to speak, to where they are going to be successful. But what do we have in our culture for this long now, in your opinion, that that is different between us in the Malay society and us in the Malaysian society?
Let me talk to you about the school that you went to. You went to a boarding school in Ipoh. Can you mention?
No. It's it's a bit outskirt of Alustar. I was in Sultan Abdul Halim. They were fondly called Jenan. It's a fully boarding school.
Okay, yeah, right.
Yeah.
See, the boarding school system, to me, in the beginning, they did a fantastic job. They produce people like you, who are pretty much independent, say what you want. You can do many things on your own. This is the product of that boarding school system. Why did the boarding school system come about, and why was it so useful for the Malay community? Because we're discussing Malay problems.
Yeah.
Because we realized that, our leaders at the time realized that the environment of the home, the village environment, in a community that was still lagging in many ways. In those days, 60s, 70s, there were villages with no water and electricity. It's quite common in Malaysia at that time. There were no schools. I have heard stories of educationists in Malaysia, my seniors in government. They were in government. After the government built a school, they would send the education officer to all the houses in that neighborhood and tell parents, there's a school now, can you please send your kids to school? And there would be children in the house, 10 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, who've never been to school. So because there were no schools. So we built schools, and then we built but there was not enough, because the culture of the living in the states, in the village areas, in the small towns, it was still a basic culture, basic agrarian agricultural society, not exposed to many things, totally cut off from conversing in the English language, for example. It was not conducive to acquire knowledge on an accelerated basis. So we created the boarding school system. And then you take all these kids from their environment and you isolate them from that environment. You put them in a new environment, in a boarding school, where you have to get up on time, there's discipline, and food is served on time, and there's a certain behavior expected, and then there's that education, which is controlled, and then you have prep lessons, you have, time spent on your studies, and then there's a lot of reading. There was debating societies and discussions, things like that. I can tell you.
Let me add one thing.
Yeah.
I'll give you a few two anecdotes. All right, about my my experience in that particular school. We had a disciplinary teacher called Khalid Ahmad. He teaches ed math, addition, calculus and that kind of thing, right? So he teaches ed math. He was the he was very stern lah. Okay, Khalid Ahmad. So already passed away. He has a very simple rule. You're allowed to argue your case. If you got caught for something or whatever, you're allowed to argue. Okay? If you can argue your way out of it, he will let you go. All right? If you fail in your argument, your punishment is double. Okay? So, I mean, that I remember it until today. I thought it was quite fun. And it's a challenge, right? For us kids, it was a challenge. I remember another friend of mine, a Chinese guy, Chipan, if you're listening to me, okay? We used to argue in class. Right, when in our free time, because he's an atheist, right, and I was trying to argue with him in terms of the existence of God and free will and how it matches, right, and we had all these lively arguments. I don't think that will ever happen in our public school today.
So the boarding school system, it created a sanitized atmosphere, where it removed young Malay kids from their traditional kind of environment in the homes and the villages and the small towns, and it put them in this boarding school environment where they did things like what you just described. I knew a friend of mine who went to a boarding school, a very famous one in Kuala Kangsar, and I mean, he used to say that they used to argue things like what you are saying. They would read books on Buddhism. And talking about religion.
And it is a very civil argument.
They would read books on Buddhism. They would discuss. They would talk about issues on religion or anything. They would even talk about socialism, things like that. It was an open discussion, which was not available in, let's say, back home in their villages and towns in regular schools. So the board, and then religion was very limited. It was 1 hour a week. So they had a lot of time, and it framed, and most of it was in English. So it created a whole generation of Malays who became not only well versed in, I would say, unfettered thinking, modern thinking. They could read and argue in English, not glorifying the English language, but it is a vehicle, isn't it? It is a medium for you to acquire information.
Correct.
And from information, you can convert it into knowledge, because information comes first. If you get something useful out of it, then it becomes knowledge. Otherwise, it could be about the love life of Madonna. That is information. I don't think it is knowledge. So this environment in the boarding school system was new, sanitized, and away from the word is actually debilitating environment and culture that the kids had back home. So as a result of which, they were exposed to a completely new way of thinking, behavior, new disciplines. From there, we got a whole generation of very capable Malays who have done well in civil service, government, in the corporates and all that. Until late 80s, the entire education system started going more on the religious religious track, especially after 2000s, where religions took over a lot of things in not only in our entire government education system, including the boarding school systems, boarding schools. So today, because of the extreme focus or the overwhelming focus on religion, you find that even in the boarding school system, people are becoming more religious conscious.
I found
and
that
they have lost that age which they had before.
Yeah, just to add to that, actually, I don't want to send kids to boarding school system today because why I feel that it's a propaganda machine. It's a brainwashing operation. It doesn't it doesn't produce the kind of critical thinkers that we used to produce. I would rather send them to Chinese schools.
There was, I don't know if they're still having the program now, because I've criticized it in my blog and my writings a few times. Some years ago, this is before 2018, before 2010, there was a boarding school where, first of all, it is part of a larger boarding school system, the science college system. But this was Islamic, so they call it the Islamic version. And in this particular boarding school, this particular campus, they introduced horse riding and shooting bows and arrows.
Okay.
Because it is something that is recommended by the religion. They should have also introduced wrestling, but wrestling is also recommended by the religion as a manly sport, a masculine sport. But they actually bought horses, and they had stables, and the stables had to be air conditioned because horses, in this heat. And some of the kids took up this horse riding because it was that particular college had an Islamic name to it, and they wanted to teach the kids horse riding because horse riding is something which the religion encourages. But who pays for it? Taxpayers' money. I think it was a waste of money. But okay, that's one, the waste of money. But the thinking behind it, that we should teach these kids horse riding. Okay, for the sport of riding horses, maybe that's a good thing. No, there was a religious twist to it. This is something that the religion encourages. So everything has got a religious angle. It does curb your creativity and your thought processes, because everything is seen from a religious angle and everything is justified from a religious angle. Bottom line is, the boarding school system now does not produce or cannot produce that kind of atmosphere which was there when you were in boarding school. I think if you go and check your old school today, I do not know if it's the same as the time when you were there.
I doubt it.
Yes, I can assure you it's very different. It's extremely different. It's not the same as before.
I think the other part as well.
So if I may finish the point. So last time, we sanitized these kids, Malay Muslim children. We sanitized them from their environment in their houses and where they lived in the society, because we thought they needed, to be exposed to something new.
Yes.
And then we put them in the boarding school. Now, that environment which they left has come in to the education system.
Yes.
Not just boarding schools, but government schools.
Yeah.
That entire culture has now followed them through the front door or the side door or whatever, so that there is no more sanitization from from that kind of a system.
The other thing, Syed, about critical thinking is the questioning of authority. Okay, this is where I find that
you cannot question authority.
Yeah, this is a part of the the feudal culture and mindset that we inherited for a long time. Now when you talk about it like that, actually, it reminded me of my time then, where somehow or other this feudalistic way of thinking or authority, not being able, when a teacher tells you can argue, I'm going to allow you to argue. You're questioning authority. You're being allowed to question authority.
Definitely.
Right? To the point where actually I was in my sixth form waiting for my SPM results, O levels, right? and they sent me to science school in Kuala Pilah. All right. And I was like, okay, I'll go there to fulfill the time, but I'm not going to go to class because I'm going to enjoy my next few months before my result come out, because I was so sure I'm not going to do well. I have no time to waste. I want to enjoy so and even the teacher at that particular time, who caught me still at, why are you not in class? And I told the teacher why. And he was like, okay. So this kind of rebellion in terms of your mindset, right? That I think is very, very restricted. So how are you going to propel society, with a culture that is conforming? You need non-conformists to actually propel society. In fact, if you ask me, that's what a Malay problem is. The basic Malay problem is that we need to be non-conformist, and our leadership need to teach and bring a non-conforming path for the people.
The way I look at it, to be like other people, to be like other communities, because don't forget, what you're saying is that there is always this, vis-a-vis, or with reference to someone else, the other communities in the country who are not impaired by the things that we are talking about now, who are freer to say what they want, to learn what they want. They are less, there is no, overarching dominance of rather
societal
control, this stress on not thinking, not questioning, to conform to everything, do not question, basically. Others may not have as much of this kind of impediment being an obstacle to them. So again, as the days, weeks, months and years go by, you find that other people are getting along just fine, happily getting along and doing things and moving along, whereas the amount of time, money that we have spent and all these programs and whatever that the politicians have thought up does not produce the results which others are already showing.
No, because
others are already achieving.
I guess because you take the immigrant community, so to speak, as what you said. By its very nature of being an immigrant, you fend for yourself. You don't have
to
something
think on your
to fall
feet.
back.
You have to think on your feet.
Correct. So, and you have to actually you accept the situation that you are in and work around it, right? And that does not occur in the Malay community, and
in an environment where the technology and everything else is changing at light speed.
Yes,
as you said,
you're far behind.
You're
already.
far behind. We are now in the age of AI, artificial intelligence.
Wow.
It is so advanced. You really have to completely unfetter your thinking to be able to maximize the opportunities that are offered by AI, Otherwise, it's like somebody gave you a computer and you turn it on at night because there's some light illuminating there and you can find your keys and all that. You're not using it to any good use. To be able to benefit maximum from AI, you really have to be able to open your mind and just let your thinking go, unfettered. You must be able to say and think and ask anything you want. And then that will maximize the benefits you can gain from the AI. If you don't do it, other people will do it. They're already doing it. AI is all about, it's artificial intelligence. It's all about mind. It's about how you think. So this is going to be another problem. And if the Malays don't maximize the opportunities being shown or being opened up by artificial intelligence, it's going to become another Malay problem vis-a-vis Malaysian problems. it's those differences are going to be there because we're just not paying attention to identifying the root causes of our problems. And this is where we have to go beyond just Malay problems. As I said, there are other communities which also have certain issues, certain problems. We have to find out what are the root causes of their problems and solve it. We have our Bumiputra people in Sabah and Sarawak. They have issues. They have issues in Sabah and Sarawak which is very unique to them. You see, over here in Peninsula, you have Orang Asli issues, which many people don't care about, except for our friend Siti Kasim. But one of the issues of the Orang Asli is that they don't have title to the land they have been living on, I don't know, for the last how many thousand years. This is especially true in certain states in the East Coast, where the state government has told them, under National Land Code, you don't have title to the land that you live in. You don't belong here. But they've been there since time immemorial. Now the same issues affect the indigenous people in Sabah and Sarawak, this issue of land ownership, because they've been there before the country was formed. But now they are finding out that they don't have title or land has been sold, this and that, and they are displaced. So these are again issues specific to that community. And it's very important because these are communities which are very closely linked to the land that they live on, not just for their livelihood, but their entire culture, their family system, everything revolves around the little piece of land that they live in and the long houses they live in. It is so critical. If you remove them from that, it's like throwing them in the middle of the sea. They have no other way of survival. So these are issues that are unique to the indigenous people in Sabah and Sarawak, especially in Sarawak, a lot of cases. Again, we have to identify these issues. Can we reverse this land issue? I don't think so. Land will always have to be developed. You will always need land to do something with it. If one person doesn't use that land to its maximum or optimum benefit, somebody else will do it. That has been the nature of land since I don't know when, in anywhere in the world. If you do not know what to do with land, somebody else will come and take it away from you. So we have to prepare our people in Sabah, Sarawak, to be able to deal with this and overcome this. So they need other skills, they need other capital, they need other capabilities so that they can fend for themselves and so that they can disengage from this dependence on a very traditional way of living. It's a traditional way of living, but if you live on your own planet, you can maintain your traditions.
At the end of the day, I think the world moves on. You can try and cut and
that's it. If you don't change, you're going to get left behind.
Right, not just left behind. You just let's put it this way: it's the nature of human civilization.
That's it.
That's it.
But you can't tell Orang Asli, hey, look, man, you don't have the land title.
You have to find a way.
You got to find something.
Yeah.
So this issue is specific to the Orang Asli, it is specific to the indigenous people, the Bumiputra and Sabah, Sarawak. Just like there are Malay problems, these are issues with the Orang Asli problems. These are the indigenous people's problems in the East, in Sabah, Sarawak. We have to focus on them. These need specific treatment, specific solutions just for them, which it's not one size fits all. Yeah. Right now they're saying one size fits all. You're not under the National Land Code. You don't have title. Get out. That's not the solution. So what I'm trying to say is that the biggest community, of course, is the Malay community, and there are many issues with the Malay community problems, which ultimately affects all of us. We all live in the same country, so we cannot ignore it. The Malays have to become more aware of what are the issues that are affecting them that may not affect other people, and therefore they need unique solutions to solve these problems, and it is best if these solutions come from inside the community. The Malays have to step up and realize what are the real issues affecting them, and demand for solutions to these problems. And what is the end result? So that you come on an equal footing with other communities. equal footing in competition, in economic well-being, in social status, everything. You know, there must be a graduation when you solve a problem. What is the desired outcome? Huh? There must be a graduation. You must reach a certain place where you are the same as the guy next to you. Then you say that we have arrived. Otherwise, it's just politicians prolonging the issue because they want votes. Every time the election comes around, they like to highlight issues, land issues, Malay rights, Malay agenda. You know, somebody recently was saying Malay agenda. Dr. Mahathir says he wants to unite all the Malays. Okay. Hold on. You have to give due regard. Huh? He built the KLIA in under 4 years. I mean, I was a banker then. I've been involved in project management. It was a miraculous achievement. Built such a huge airport in under 4 years. No other country can do it. We built power stations in 24 months. In Spain, it took 10 years to build a power plant. He built the North-South Highway in 4 years. Huh? Okay, so now he's going to unite all the Malays again. What do you need? I mean, you build these things, right? So if you're going to unite the Malays and all that now, weren't the Malays, were they united when he built the first North-South Highway, or were they not as united? I don't know what is this issue all was uniting the Malays, because he already did all these things. We need another highway now. We need more highways. Do we have to unite the Malays first before he can build, for example, the North-South Highway? That airport now, it's still a world-class airport, but now it's like, it's a bit...
Yeah, because...
there are some issues here and there. The train keeps breaking down. Why not build another airport, international class airport? So do you have to unite the Malays first before you're going to build another airport? He did it once before. So what is this talk about uniting Malays? Just go ahead and build. We need another airport, build it. He did it once. Build more highways. Dr. Mahathir, if you ask me, the name of the highway should be changed. Put it under his name. The Mahathir Mohamad Highway.
Here's the problem. Anyway.
So, we need to... we're talking about Malay problems. The politicians like the problems. They like to say that, no, we're not united, we're under threat, so we have to unite. No, there are more important things to do in the time that we have, instead of bringing up these kind of issues which don't help the Malays at all.
On that note, I think we address quite systemic issues, plus some of few examples that we look at. This is a huge topic, if you ask me personally. I hope our audience has taken valuable things from what we talk about, and we hope policymakers are also listening, and our leadership also listens and realize that actually to make the country go, we need a different way of thinking,
to question and to debate.
To question, yep. I mean, to argue, to question, debate, to have an unfettered mindset for all. So on that note, please subscribe. We want to keep going, and we'll see you again on the next episode. Thank you so much, Syed.
Thank you very much.